Welcome back, I'm Kim Bailey and this is Floral Art Online, and this is our series called Designs Dissected, where each week I submit a design that I have completed at some previous point in history to our AI, DesignEye, for an analysis of that design and some suggestions on how it could be improved. And you can read about the particular design and its construction. There's a link at the end of each of the sections. But this particular series is about what the AI says when it analyses the design against the principles and elements of design. So this week our designs are Spring, using Australian native flora, and another one called Acceleration, which was an international competition one. Let's look at Spring first of all. Now this was a practice design, so it gave me an ideal opportunity to look at the plant material that I had on hand and how I could best display that in terms of it being a reflection of the abundance of material that was available in spring. So here is the design, as you can see, and I will walk you through what it looks like when I put it together. So the base is a slice of Banksia that was a tree that came down in the storm, and I've put some naturally curled gum tree bark with it as well to fill in some of the gaps, and the palm spathe is almost hidden as the container for the water source for the plant material. The rest of the design is native plant material that I picked from the farm at the time, and what I wanted it to look like was that spring was bursting out, as it often does. Is suddenly we turn a corner in the seasons and the flowers are out everywhere. Hay fever comes to visit, but also that we have this wonderful abundance of colour and form, and I wanted that to be shown in this particular design. That was my thinking around it. So having submitted the image to DesignEye, which any of you can do at any point through the website, through floralartonline.com/DesignEye. You can submit an image of any of your designs and get a similar based analysis of your design. It's a great education tool because often we don't get the kind of feedback that we need on our particular design, so that we can look at the image and we can decide what we want to do. So let's go through what a DesignEye said about this particular design. So first of all, looking at line, the arrangement uses a variety of lines. Kangaroo paw and the bottle brush stems create strong vertical lines, while the foliage and grevillea flowers add a touch of curvature. Shape, the design incorporates a variety of geometric and organic shapes, which is an interesting assessment. The base is an oval, a basic geometric shape. The flowers themselves have a mix of organic shapes from round to elongated. So interesting contrast there in how it saw the shape within the design, something that we probably wouldn't automatically think of when we look at it ourselves. Colour. The colour palette reflects the Australian spring season with bright and warm colours. There are pink kangaroo paw flowers, red bottle brush flowers, and varied grevilleas and green foliage. So just a statement of what it was seeing in the image itself. Texture. The textures in the arrangements vary considerably. The base has a smooth top and rough sides. The kangaroo paw flowers have a fuzzy texture. The foliage is smooth and the bottle brush flowers have a bristly texture. This variety adds visual interest. So not just recognising that there's different textures within the design, but why that is useful in terms of this design. So once again, a good educational tool for us when we're looking at our designs and trying to improve them each time we do something. Balance in the design. The design has asymmetrical balance. The kangaroo paw and grevillea stems are on the left side of the arrangement, whilst the bottle brush flowers extend the base of the design. This creates a more dynamic and visually interesting look. So it's interesting that at this point it is just stating some facts, and as we go on you'll see where in its analysis it feels there could be room for improvement. Proportions. The scale of the flowers and the base is proportionate. The flowers are not too small nor too short for the base, and the base is not too large or too small for the flowers. So once again, that balance of height and placement, that's important in all of our designs. Rhythm. There is some repetition of colour in the design, The pink of the kangaroo paw flowers is echoed in the grevilleas. However, there is not a strong sense of rhythm created by line, shape or size. First time we've seen it analyse something and say where it's lacking. Emphasis. The red bottle brush flowers are the focal point of the design. Their large size, bright colour and unique shape make them stand out from the rest of the design. Now this, for me, when I read this, is a problem because I didn't want there to be a focal point. I wanted it to be interest equated, so I wanted it to just be this profusion, not have your eye drawn to any one particular place. But when you look at that image, that is where you're drawn to, that bottom left-hand corner, to where the red bottle brush is. So the suggestions from DesignEye: strengthen the sense of rhythm. You could achieve this by repeating shapes or colours more clearly throughout the arrangement. So that's more about massing some of those placements together. So I have massed the kangaroo paw to a certain extent, as you can see, but the grevilleas I've spread all through the design. It would be better in terms of rhythm to have those grevilleas placed in groups, so mass the form and the shape and the colour to give the designer a fuller sense of rhythm. Consider adding a filler flower. A smaller flower could be used to create a more cohesive look for the design, and that most definitely is true. When I look at it now, and I think there's no way for us to transition from those big, bold colours and forms of the grevillea and the bottle brush into the rest of the design, so the softer look of the foliage or the smaller flowers on the kangaroo paw. So absolutely it needs the addition of filler flower. What the filler would also do is help with the rhythm, because that would be repeated and flow throughout the whole of the design. So overall, the spring floral design is a well-considered piece that effectively showcases the diversity of Australian spring flowers. With a few minor tweaks, you could also strengthen the sense of rhythm and create an even more visually cohesive design. So that's given me some food for thought and some steps that I can take to improve that particular design. Let's now go on to the second one, which was acceleration. My idea for this design was based on a game we played as kids, where you put a glass marble at the top of a plastic spiral structure, and you race to see who's got down the fastest, or if you could fit two onto the track, who's got down first. So what I've got is a section of a banksia tree, and I've drilled some holes and horizontally placed some wooden skewers in it so that I could secure what was almost a natural spiral of dried water hyacinth that came from a deconstructed placemat. Then in that track, so to speak, I've put some oranges at various points as they're coming down the spiral, and then gathered at the bottom. And in between, just for a little bit of visual contrast, there is some some white status, trying to think what it was, but it's very difficult to see in this image. But what that was there for was to match some of the colour graduations that were in the bark of the banksia itself. So I just didn't want it to be the banksia bark and the hyacinth and the oranges. I needed something to bring all of those colours, that colour palette, together a bit better. So let's see what DesignEye thought of this design in terms of the principles and elements of design. Line, first of all. There are a few curved lines in the design, but they are not very strong. The most prominent line is the vertical one that is provided by the main timber, which creates a static feeling rather than a sense of movement. And that's very true. Now that I look at the image, the lines that are made with the water hyacinth for the track aren't uniform enough in terms of their curve to make it a very definite dominant line. And so the bulk of the banksia, that is the structure in the middle, comes forward as the main part, as the main line of the design. In terms of shape, the shapes of the plant material are mostly circular or oval, which are organic shapes but don't necessarily imply movement. So that's also very true now that I look at it in hindsight. And once again, coming back to that line comment, if the line was stronger in terms of the track that those oranges are on, it would create more shape coherence with the oranges and the other round elements that are part of the design. Colour. The colour palette is bright because of the oranges. Bright colours can contribute to a sense of acceleration, but the single orange colour creates a busy feel rather than a sense of direction. So an interesting comment. I'm trying still to digest that. I think it's probably has more to do with the fact that it's looking at an image, obviously, and that there's too much orange at the base, and so it's making it too busy in terms of that left-hand side of the design. So let's look now at texture. The textures in the arrangement vary from smooth to rough to fuzzy. This variation in texture adds visual interest, so that's a good plus. So I've managed to incorporate those different sorts of textures into the design. Balance. The design has an asymmetrical balance. The oranges are placed mostly on the left side of the arrangement, with minimal placements balancing them on the right, and that's very true. Not a good or a bad thing, it's just a statement of that's how it appears. Proportion. The scale of the plant material is proportionate. The oranges are not too large for the central timber, and the timber is not too large or too small for the other placements. And that's probably a reasonable assessment. It's just that our eye tends to tell us there's something wrong with it because that central timber section is so dominant, because I haven't cut that line that with the bulk that it creates. Rhythm. There is not a strong sense of rhythm in this design. The curving line should be a stronger part, as this would provide rhythm through the design. So that's very much what we've talked about all the way through. So that's the key improvement that I could make in this design, is making that curved line, that track for the so-called marbles, much stronger. And that might just be colour, or it might be a different material, an enhanced material. You know, I might have had to follow that line, have the water hyacinth there, but follow it with some strong foliage, so flax or something else that actually created not just the line, the dominant line in a darker colour, but a colour as well, so introducing a green into the predominantly brown and orange colour scheme that's there. Emphasis. The oranges are the focal point of the design. The bright colour and the fact that they are clustered together make them stand out from the rest of the design. That's very true. And once again, not good or bad, just making a statement of this is where the emphasis is on this particular design. So the suggestions now: use a stronger line to create a sense of movement. So we've seen that all the way through. Concentric curved lines that flow in a particular direction, so much more evenly spaced and similar angles to them, or S-shaped curves could all help to create a sense of acceleration. And I could have used a gradation of colour, moving from lighter colours at the top of the design to darker colours at the bottom to create a sense of depth and movement. And that's very true. The oranges are all one colour, and they do stand out in that sense. So if you can imagine it in graded colours, you know, even if I had used another one type of fruit, or a round fruit, or tomatoes, or something where I could get and with tomatoes, obviously, if I could get a range of colours in them, and that might have enhanced that feeling of movement for the design. So interestingly, now that we've seen all of that, the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is what the physical judges gave me as feedback. Great structure to showcase the acceleration of objects running down a spiral path. So they got the idea. More oranges at the base of the design would have balanced the dominance of the central support. So once again, they're saying that the bulk of that central support is creating a visual focal point or a draw card that is taking away from the movement that needs to happen with the rest of the design. Well executed mechanics and use of all plant material in the design. So what they're acknowledging there is that there are no embellishments. Everything that's in it that they can see is plant material. The central support structure, the bamboo skewers, the water hyacinth, the oranges, and the other status that is used within the design, or plant material. So I haven't relied on anything else other than plant material in the design. So that's our two examples for this week. I do encourage you to have a look at DesignEye, throw up one of your designs, have it assessed, analysed by DesignEye, so that you can look at that assessment and look at your design with a different viewpoint and see whether you agree or whether there are things there that you need to think about next time you're designing. For now, I'm Kim Bailey, and this is Floral Art Online, Dissecting Designs.